This week, the King and Queen have been in Australia on a royal tour. Now, despite most of the premiers declining an invite to a royal reception on Monday, it seems that Australia, in the main, like the majority of Brits, love royalty. The alternative is far worse. More politicians, no thank you. Now, the tour was mildly marred when the King was accused of genocide against First Nations by Senator Lidia Thorpe, who shouted, "You are not my king, you are not our king, you are not sovereign. You destroyed our land," she said. Of course, King Charles brushed this off as you would as he met cancer survivors at a pioneering clinic, the Melanoma Institute Australia, where he met with brain cancer survivor Richard Scolyer, who is in remission after undergoing breakthrough surgery last year. Now, this is exactly what I want my monarch to be doing, drawing attention to illnesses that affect billions, him included, and giving energy and credit to brilliant humans. What on earth is wrong with that? It's very difficult being positive in such a divided world. So let's not discredit the importance of that. In other news, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have apparently bought a home in Portugal, a place that I visited for the first time in August this year. I loved it so much, I'm saving to buy a house there myself. But sadly, Meghan and Harry have actually beat me to it, which has actually put me off. And it seems that the locals weren't impressed either, as they're used to richer and more famous people buying property in that area that H&M have moved to. One local estate agent who has been working in that region for decades said that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were likely to have spent more than €4 million for a property on one of its exclusive resorts. He said, "In recent years, we have seen A-listers from the States buying homes or plots which are essentially closed environments. It's very high end, and the homes range from 4 to 20 million. He continued, "We have much richer and much more famous people buying here for sure. I think that they will have zero impact, to be honest." And if someone like Jeff Bezos bought there, then yes, there could be some impact, but not Harry and Meghan. So they're unlikely to be rolling out the red carpet for these two. This is GB and America. Welcome to Lee Cohen, who joins me now. Lee Cohen, let's talk. There's been a bit of outrage over the UK Labour Party sending 100 volunteers to assist Kamala Harris. How has that been received? We've been outraged in this country, but how's it been received across the pond?
Well, Nana, certainly over here, Labour's decision to send volunteers to assist Kamala Harris campaign it's an outright disgrace. It's an unacceptable breach of sovereignty for a foreign nation, a foreign political entity, to meddle in the democratic processes of a nation. This is a blatant attempt to manipulate the outcome of an election that should be decided by American voters alone.
What about if people were to say about Nigel Farage? After all, he went to chat and see Donald Trump, and he's an open supporter of Trump, and he will be helping during Trump's campaign, I'm presuming. Maybe he won't, but he has been so far quite active in a sense. People might use that as a comparison and say, well, if that is surely that is also some sort of election interference.
Well, people might do that, but in this case in particular, Nana, Labour's actions raise serious legal concerns. Foreign nationals directly participating in American political campaigns in this organized way, where they're bringing a delegation of 100 people, can violate U.S. elections laws. While these volunteers are reportedly not being paid for their efforts, someone is paying for their travel expenses. Who? The taxpayer? Perhaps the generous Lord Ali? It's not just unethical, it's potentially illegal.
Really? I don't know whether it's illegal. I think it's probably unethical. I don't get why they're doing it. I don't understand, because maybe David Lammy, he's scared after calling Trump a Nazi and all the other comments he made. I think that might have something to do with it.
Well, Nana, should Trump win, as is looking ever more likely from the polls, the fallout from this interference could severely strain U.S.-UK relations, particularly in light of the previous negative remarks about Trump that Lammy has made. Lammy's called Trump a serial liar, a wannabe despot, and a troll. This is not very judicious from the UK's top diplomat to do that. There are real implications here for diplomatic relations between the two countries that Lammy has set up to have tension.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he called him a Nazi as well, actually, just to add to your list, which, I mean, that's quite a strong thing to say. And if you're on the global stage, these are not words that should be coming from a diplomat's mouth to potentially the next leader of the free world. It's a bit stupid, really. And,
it's very short-sighted.
It beggars belief. It's not even a sensible thing to say to anyone. Anyway, let's talk about the royal family. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they've been facing criticism for urging Americans to register to vote in the upcoming US election. Now, that in itself isn't necessarily a good or bad thing or a thing, but why are they even opening their mouths? They're not really relevant spokespeople for the government.
Well, they're not relevant spokespeople for anything but themselves. Meghan and Harry's thinly veiled intrusions into U.S. politics are not only misguided and hypocritical, but it fundamentally reveals their ignorance about substantive issues into which they so often insert themselves. Despite their foundation claiming political neutrality in the voter registration push, Harry and Meghan's actions reveal a blatant hypocrisy. Their prior comments about, or rather, really Meghan's prior comments about former President Trump, expressing disdain and making inflammatory remarks, undermine any pretense of impartiality. How can they call for civic engagement while having openly criticized a significant political figure who could well be the next president of the United States? And then, another thing that reveals their hypocrisy about the supposed neutrality of the voter registration push, Nana, is that their statement coincides suspiciously with Harry's upcoming appearances that followed on the heels of that statement alongside prominent Democrats like Joe Biden and the Clintons. This not only raises eyebrows, but also suggests that their so-called neutrality is a thinly veiled attempt to align themselves with one side of the political spectrum and not neutrality at all.
It is, and to be fair, lots of celebrities do open their mouths and say stuff in the political arena. Some of them then say stuff and then they want to take it back after they've done stuff because they realise it's probably not wise. They released a statement through their charity. This is Harry and Meghan, the Uproar Foundation, emphasising the importance of civic engagement regardless of your political affiliation. So they're kind of saying, look, we're not telling you who to vote for. We're just telling you to vote and use your vote. So let's move on to King Charles and Queen Camilla. They are in Australia. They are currently carrying out a state visit. It's the first time that a king of the United Kingdom, and of course their monarch, has actually set foot on Australian soil. Talk to me about what's been going on there. Of course, you had the Senator, didn't you, Lidia Thorpe, launching an attack on King Charles and shouting that you're not my king and all that sort of thing.
Well, Nana, before I address the appalling behavior of a very lowbrow protest from an Australian elected official, may I say something as someone from a former British colony who gave up the system of constitutional monarchy? And what I'd like to say is that, regrettably, our American system lacks the possibility of a beloved apolitical monarch who can unify us and serve as a constant reminder of the highest ideals of our history and values. And such a figure, obviously the king I'm speaking of, could provide an invaluable counterbalance to the deep divisions tearing at the fabric of my nation and the deep divisions that are being experienced by many nations in their partisan struggles of the day. So I would really encourage Republicans everywhere to reevaluate their position. Happily, it seems Australian support to become a republic has fallen, with 45% overwhelmingly preferring to remain a constitutional monarchy. And this is according to a Pulse of Australia poll conducted earlier this month. As a personal experience, Nana, I had the honor of meeting Queen Elizabeth in 2007 and the Duke of Edinburgh at an embassy garden party during their state visit, would be their last visit to the United States. It was the experience of a lifetime, never to be forgotten by anyone in attendance, Nana, regardless of their political persuasion or their party persuasion. So this is just unbelievable to me. Senator Lidia Thorpe's disgraceful outburst during the King's address was the height of disrespect. And as a champion of the Anglosphere and an American supporter of the monarchy, I'm appalled, like so many others in Australia and across the world. But rightfully, she was widely denounced by the Prime Minister on down. In fact, Nana, one senior Aboriginal leader probably said it best, who reportedly condemned the outburst as disrespectful and rude, and further clarified it by saying, "We are all so disappointed by it. He is our king, our sovereign, and he has got cancer." She concluded, "Hopefully people will see it for what it is, a one-off idiot." And that's exactly what it is.
And actually, if you look at the alternative, as you sort of alluded to earlier, the alternative, more politicians. No, thank you. I don't think so.
President Blair, that should send a chill down anyone's spine in the UK.
God. No. See, that's the thing. A lot of people criticising it, but then when you say, well, what would you have in its place? There really isn't another answer, is there? Listen, Lee Cohen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. That is Lee Cohen. Thank you. Well, joining me now is Lady Victoria Harvey. She joins me. Lady V, you don't mind me calling you that, do you? I quite like Lady V, looking fabulous as ever. Now, let's talk Meghan Markle. Let's get stuck in straight away. She may have a secret weapon, apparently. She wrote a journal while she was living in Frogmore Cottage. I mean, maybe she did, maybe she didn't, maybe she wrote it afterwards.
Yeah,
who knows?
Exactly. Who knows? Is this something that she can use as blackmail further down the line when they may be desperate for cash or something like that? Who knows? But I don't think that it's important right now. I think her and Harry as well, they seem to have sort of moved away from that and kind of looking more into the future rather than behind.
Do you think? I'm not so sure, and even the fact that information should surface suggests that there's something, so that if there's any way of monetizing that, I think that they'll be onto it like a cat on a hot tin roof.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, I don't know where that information leaked. Do we know where that it could have been leaked on purpose to see who would be interested in that diary? As we know from other scenarios like this, a diary could have been created, who knows, it could have been created later and then made to look like it was written then as another way of making money.
Exactly.
This all happens. We know all this. It happens a lot, especially, going back to the Epstein girls, the girls that made up diaries later on. So I think that...
Do we know they definitely did that? Do we know they actually wrote the diaries later on?
Yeah, Maria Farmer did.
She's obviously not here to defend herself, so let's leave her where she is. But
let's
move.
I'm just saying, with Meghan Markle as an example, like, who knows? It could have been written back then. Does she tell the truth anyway? Do people believe it?
All right, let's talk about today's paperback release of Spare. Now that's come out, Prince Harry and all those public revelations that he made after years of interviews, this memoir, and obviously the Netflix stuff going on. But a lot of people aren't interested in it anymore. I mean,
they've left quite a big gap, haven't they? I mean, that is almost 2 years since the original came out. Normally, you'd think that that would be sort of within a year that they would bring the softback out. So I don't know. I think people are kind of over it. They sort of gone past that. You know, it's not really that interesting anymore. Personally, I actually had the audio when his book came out. I found it like easier to listen to than read.
And what did you make of that? Did it not start to grate on you, the sound of his voice scratching at your eardrums, or
Yeah.
did it send you to sleep?
Well, it was actually interesting that he actually did record it himself, because, you know, like some books and the authors don't actually do the audio tape themselves. So I don't know, with him for that particular book, I found it easier to listen to it. But yes, it gets to be, I was actually unpacking my boxes when I had moved back to London, listening to that in January when it came out nearly 2 years ago. So yeah, let's see. But I think it sort of feels like it's been out a long time now, and I'm sure they're kind of looking at the next book.
Well, they're going solo now, aren't they? So they're not, stuck to each other like glue, and they're doing their own thing. What do you think? Do you think that is a planned sort of PR strategy, or do you feel that they may well be sort of moving apart a little bit?
I think it's a PR strategy, because clearly, as a couple, it's not really working. And also, it might be the start of a sort of break where they are dividing their finances. You know, I'm not sure if they have separate accounts or, you know, joint account. I'm sure there was a joint account for things that they did together. And so now it's clearly kind of disjointed, and they're going to be making their own money. That's how it looks like.
And what about Portugal? Because apparently they've found a house in Portugal now. I visited Portugal for the first time this year. I loved it, but they've sort of spoilt it for me now. If they're there.
Well, you know, Portugal has become very popular. Actually, my sister moved there 3 or 4 years ago. There's a massive sort of expat community out there on the Algarve. And I think for Harry and Meghan, probably because, you know, Eugenie lives there a lot of the time with her husband, Jack. I mean, they spend half the amount of time, I think, there. So I'm sure that sort of enticed them. And also, yes, it's that one step closer to England. So it'll be easier for the family or Harry to do short visits to London and actually maybe integrate his children and get them to meet their cousins more.
Well, or to meet their cousins,
or
actually meet them.
Yeah, or it could be the start of a real separation, that we see a transatlantic separation between Meghan and Harry.
Yeah, well, it's not really a good look, is it, to be slagging off your own family on a global stage, especially when they're the royal family. Nobody likes any of that, and to be honest, it looks to me like the main part of the royal family have actually distanced themselves from Harry and Meghan, and that's
I
to me.
It's toxic, really, isn't it? It's a sort of, you know, that's the thing. We can't choose our family. We can choose our friends, but you know, family is not chosen. And unfortunately, with those two, they have proven time and time again to be completely like a negative force against the family. And there's going to be a lot of making up to do from that.
Yeah, I should imagine. If it is even salvageable. Do you think it's salvageable?
I think it could be salvageable if there is a complete break between Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And I think that would take many, many years of a lot of work from Harry's side.
So basically, if they split up, then it might work. What about Meghan Markle now? She recently spoke to some teenagers in Santa Barbara, California, about her experiences with online bullying. She basically said that she is the most bullied woman in the world.
Yes. Well, now, you know, it's that thing where her and Harry are, you know, it's a sympathy. They're always trying to get sympathy. Look, she's known as a bully, isn't she? You know, she can't keep staff longer than a couple of months. And there's not really any kind of positive reports coming out of her household of what goes on in there. So it's like she's literally like, she is the bully and she's pretending that she gets bullied. So maybe she needs to look in the mirror a little bit more.
I'm sure she looks in the mirror a lot. I don't think we can get her to do any more of that. God help us. Look, yeah, I hear it. She probably is a bully, but
and also that whole Sussex squad on Twitter, that is like major bullying, like right there. And I don't think that they do anything to control those people or get rid of them. I think they encourage it probably.
Well, I mean, there's no evidence that they do or that they even have any links with them, but they should have knowledge of it. If she's saying she's the most trolled person online, she would have knowledge of groups that are trolling others who are in support of her. So if that were me and I were her and I had this people doing that, I'd make a statement to this Sussex squad and say, look, I don't condone any bullying on any level. So stop bullying people. They're entitled to their opinion. It's not nice, but what you're doing is wrong. But not a word.
Yeah,
she hasn't said any of that, has she?
Well, no, that actually really, I think, is needed by her. I think they should actually put out a statement about the Twitter trolls, because like the kind of stuff they put on there about the rest of the family, and it's dangerous as well.
Yeah. It is indeed. Well, Lady Victoria Hervey, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Really good to talk to you.
See you. All right. Bye.
That is Lady Victoria Hervey. This is GBN Royal. I'm Nana Acquare. If you want to find out more, go to gbnews.com/America.